Princess Soraya prepares for the meeting aboard the Imperial Star Palace, her anxiety rising with every step. She secretly plans her escape if the human truly is a beast. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ship, the audience meets Captain Morgan Hale, the so-called ruthless human. He is nothing like the rumors. He is calm, quiet, observant, carrying a small metal box that he protects carefully. But the Zyrati soldiers watch him like a monster. They expect him to snap at any moment. Even Morgan can feel the fear around him. He sighs and mutters, "Why does every empire think humans are wild animals?" This contrast builds curiosity and soft tension. Welcome to my channel Starlight Sci-Fi Stories. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. The Zyrati Imperial Palace floated above a sea of stars, shining like a living crown in the darkness. Inside its silver halls, thousands of alien nobles gathered for a single purpose: to witness the arrival of the human who was chosen to marry their princess. Whispers filled the air long before he arrived. Humans are unpredictable. They never bow. They fight even when they are supposed to flee. And this one is the most dangerous. Princess Soraya heard every word. She stood alone in her private chamber, staring at her reflection. Her golden eyes, usually full of calm confidence, now trembled. She adjusted her ceremonial crown with shaking fingers. No matter how much she prepared, nothing stopped the fear spreading inside her chest. Her mother, the Empress, had made the announcement only 1 week ago. "You will marry the human Captain Morgan Hale. Our alliance depends on it." Soraya protested. She begged. She cried. But none of it mattered. For centuries, the Zyrati Empire stayed separate from all other species. But recently, the galaxy had become unstable. A dangerous race called the Vorn Dominion was rising. The Empress believed that a union with humanity, a rapidly growing power, was the only way to ensure peace. But Soraya? She only felt trapped. All she knew about humans came from old stories and exaggerated tales. According to most Zyrati historians, humans were reckless. Humans were emotional. Humans formed strong bonds, but they also held dangerous anger. And worst of all, humans protected the ones they loved with terrifying intensity. Soraya feared what that would mean for her. She imagined a tall, wild-eyed man, someone who barked orders and crushed anything that stood in his way. Someone who would treat her like an object in a political game. Someone who would say, "You are mine now." She whispered to herself, "I don't want this. I don't want him." But she had no choice. Her door chimed. Her advisor entered. Quote, "Princess," the advisor said with a bow, "the human has arrived." Soraya's heart dropped. Is he as frightening as they say?" she asked quietly. The advisor swallowed nervously. She didn't answer the question directly, which terrified Soraya even more. "Please follow me." The human arrives meanwhile, on the opposite side of the palace, inside a guarded docking bay. A human man stepped out of a small transport ship. Captain Morgan Hale. He was tall, yes, and strong, but he didn't look like a monster. He wore the clean uniform of the Terran Alliance, dark blue with white accents, and carried only a small metal case in his hand. Dozens of Zyrati guards aimed energy spears at him. Morgan frowned. "Is this really necessary?" he asked calmly. The guards didn't respond. They only tightened their grips, as if expecting Morgan to suddenly roar and attack. Morgan sighed. Why does every alien empire think humans are wild animals? But he kept walking. He didn't argue. He didn't shout. He simply followed the escort with quiet patience. Around him, more whispers filled the room. "That is the human? He looks so calm. It must be an act. Be careful, they strike without warning." Morgan heard every word. He was used to it. The meeting room. Princess Soraya arrived at the grand meeting chamber first. The hall was decorated with floating lights, holographic banners, and a long silver table. Her hands were cold with fear. "What if he hates me?" she whispered. "What if he controls me? What if I can never escape him?" The chamber doors opened. Morgan entered. Soraya felt her breath freeze. He wasn't the monster she imagined. He wasn't huge or terrifying. He wasn't shouting or acting aggressive. He looked tired, human, normal, and when he saw her, he stopped and gave a respectful bow. "Princess Soraya," he said softly. "It's an honor to meet you." Soraya blinked. He sounded warm, gentle, almost kind. She didn't know how to respond. Behind her, alien nobles whispered, "He hides his true nature." Humans act polite before they strike. She must be careful. He will dominate her. Morgan's jaw tightened slightly. He had heard them too. But instead of getting angry, he opened the small metal case he carried. Inside was a small, fragile plant with white petals, a Terran peace lily. Soraya stared, confused. Morgan spoke. We humans bring a peace lily when we join families. To show we hope to grow something gentle, not violent. Soraya couldn't hide her surprise. This was not the gesture of a ruthless warrior. This was the gesture of a man who respected others. She looked at the flower again, and her fears softened, only a little, but it softened. Thank you, she said quietly. Morgan smiled, and it made her heart flutter in a strange way she didn't understand. The general's challenge suddenly, the chamber doors burst open. A tall Zyrati general marched in, armor shining and eyes burning with anger. Princess Soraya, he shouted. You cannot marry this human beast. Morgan blinked. That's a bit dramatic. A ripple of panic spread through the room. The general pointed at Morgan. You, human, if you wish to join our royal family, you must prove you are not a threat. You must face me in combat. Soraya gasped. No, he doesn't need to prove anything. She cried, but no one listened. The court loved drama. The nobles loved fear. The empire loved tests of strength. Morgan simply nodded. I accept. Soraya turned to him, horrified. You don't have to do this. He's one of our strongest warriors. Morgan shrugged lightly. I don't want to fight, he said truthfully. But refusing will make things worse. Soraya felt helpless as the guards escorted everyone to the palace arena. The arena. Where truth is shown, the arena was a massive circle of polished black stone, surrounded by excited nobles and warriors. Everyone expected blood. Everyone expected violence. Soraya watched from the upper balcony, hands gripping the railing so tight her knuckles turned white. The general entered first, swinging a heavy plasma staff. Morgan entered with nothing. No weapon, no armor, just his simple human uniform. The nobles laughed. He will be crushed. A human cannot match a Zyrati general. He will show his true savage side. Soraya felt sick. The general charged. Morgan moved calmly, dodging each strike with surprising grace. He didn't counterattack. He didn't try to hurt the general. He only blocked, redirected, and avoided. Minutes passed. The general grew tired. Morgan didn't. Soraya watched in amazement. He's not fighting, she whispered. He's protecting. Finally, the general made a wide, reckless swing. Morgan stepped inside the strike, tapped the staff aside, and placed his palm against the general's chest. With a gentle push, the general fell backward, hard, landing flat on his back. Morgan didn't hurt him. He didn't strike a single violent blow. The arena went silent. Morgan held out a hand to help the general up. The general stared at the hand, shocked. Morgan said, "Strength without kindness means nothing." Soraya's breath caught. He had defeated a trained warrior, with control, with respect, with compassion. This was not the ruthless human she feared. This was something else entirely. Something better. The Empress's decision. Moments later, the Empress arrived in the arena. Her presence was cold and powerful. She stood tall, her voice echoing through the entire chamber. "The test has ended," she said. "The lieutenant is clear." Everyone held their breath. "The marriage will proceed tomorrow." Morgan looked stunned. Soraya felt her heart stop. Tomorrow? Too fast. Too soon. She had barely understood the man standing before her. She wanted to talk to him more. She wanted to understand him. She wanted to know if he was someone she could trust, truly trust. But she would not get time. Soraya stepped forward nervously. "Mother, please." She didn't finish. The palace lights suddenly turned red. A deep alarm echoed through the halls. Every warrior froze. A hologram appeared above the arena, showing a massive black starship outside the palace shield. The symbol on the ship was unmistakable. The Vorn Dominion. The Empress narrowed her eyes. A voice transmitted into the palace. "Zyrati Empire, surrender the princess to us. She belongs to Vorn territory now." Soraya felt her knees weaken. The Vorn were known across the galaxy for brutality and conquest. They continued, "And do not rely on your human toy to protect her. Humans cannot stop us." Soraya's chest tightened with fear. The whole palace stared at Morgan. Would he run? Would he hide? Would he abandon her? He stepped forward. His voice was steady and strong. "They won't touch her. Not while I live." The hall went silent. Even the Empress looked surprised. Soraya stared at him, heart racing. The human she feared had just promised to defend her with his life. And for the first time, she didn't feel afraid of him. She felt afraid for him. The alarm echoed through every corridor of the Zyriti Imperial Palace. Red warning lights flashed against the silver walls. Soldiers sprinted in formation, nobles panicked, and commanders shouted orders. The entire palace shook as the shield systems strained under the pressure of the Vorn Dominion's warning shots. Princess Soraya stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had always known the Vorn were dangerous. But this was worse than she ever imagined. A towering holographic screen displayed the Vorn warship, a monstrous vessel shaped like a spiked claw, glowing with dark energy. They wanted her. They wanted a princess of the Zyriti Empire as a political hostage. And they weren't afraid to kill hundreds to get her. Morgan Hale, the human she had feared for so long, stepped toward the hologram without hesitation. His shoulders tense, his eyes focused, not on the size of the enemy, but on her. "Princess," he said calmly, "we need to move." Soraya swallowed, trembling. "But, you don't have to stay with me. This is between the Empire and the Vorn. Humans shouldn't die for." Morgan cut her off with a serious expression. "I gave you my word." Those 5 simple words made her chest tighten in a strange, painful way. She had feared humans for their passion, their intensity. But now she saw something different in Morgan, not danger but devotion. The Empress appeared beside them, giving sharp orders to her generals. "The Vorn will attempt a boarding strike," she said. "We must get the princess to safety." Morgan stepped forward immediately. "I'll escort her." The Empress studied him carefully. Her expression cold and unreadable as always. After a moment, she nodded. "Protect her, human. If she falls into Vorn hands, this galaxy will bleed." Morgan didn't flinch. "She won't fall." The Empress believed him. Soraya felt her fear slowly replaced by a warm flame she didn't understand. The palace shake, the walls vibrated violently. A deep, metallic boom echoed across the halls. The shield had been struck hard. A commander shouted, "Vorn ships are deploying boarding claws." Impact in 30 seconds. Soraya nearly stumbled, but Morgan caught her arm gently. "Stay close," he said. "I won't let anything happen to you." She nodded quietly, trust growing inside her like a seed. The escape route Morgan led her through the long crystal corridors of the palace. Soldiers passed them, bending their heads in respect, not because he was a human, but because he had defeated their general without cruelty. That memory still echoed in Soraya's mind. She watched Morgan walk ahead of her. Steady, silent, determined, not a monster, not a brute, a guardian. She whispered to herself, "Why did I fear you?" But another explosion shook the floor, pulling her out of her thoughts. The palace's lower levels were already under attack. They reached a lift platform, but before they could step on it, boom! The ceiling above them cracked. A massive steel support beam crashed downward. Soraya gasped and froze. Morgan reacted instantly. He shoved Soraya aside and threw himself under the falling beam, taking the hit on his shoulder and back. The metal slammed into him with a sickening crack. Soraya screamed. "Morgan!" He gritted his teeth, pushing the beam off his back. "I'm fine," he muttered, though his voice was strained. She rushed to his side. "You're injured." Morgan gave a weak smile. "Humans heal fast. Don't worry." But Soraya did worry, more than she had ever worried about anything in her life. For the first time, she realized she didn't want to lose him. Not after everything he had shown her. Not after he risked his life for her without hesitation. Not after he promised to protect her. Boarding attack. The platform doors opened, and a group of Vorn soldiers rushed in, their armor dark and insect-like, claws glowing with red plasma. Soraya froze in fear. Morgan stepped in front of her like a shield. The Vorn laughed cruelly. "Move aside." "Human," one hissed. "You cannot protect her." Morgan cracked his neck. "Try me." The fight began instantly. Morgan grabbed the nearest pipe, using it like a staff. His movements were quick, sharp, and controlled, the opposite of the wild, reckless fighter the rumors had described. He fought with a purpose. Every step he took was to shield Soraya. Every strike he made was to protect, not destroy. He disarmed the first soldier with a sweeping kick. He flipped another over his shoulder. He dodged plasma claws by inches. Soraya watched in awe. This is the human way of fighting?" she whispered. "Precise. Focused. Protective. Morgan wasn't ruthless. He was disciplined. 2 more Vorn charged at once. Morgan spun the pipe and struck them both in the chest, sending sparks flying. Within moments, all the Vorn lay on the ground, unconscious, not dead. Soraya stared at him in shock. "You didn't kill any of them," she whispered. Morgan wiped sweat from his forehead and shrugged. "I only fight to protect, not to harm." Her heart pounded. This human was nothing like she had been taught to fear. The command bridge. Soraya and Morgan finally reached the main command bridge of the palace. But the hall was eerily empty. Abandoned consoles flickered. Holographic maps flashed warnings. Smoke drifted from exposed cables. The Empress and her generals had moved to the underground warchamber. Morgan knew what that meant. "They left the bridge because they thought it wasn't safe," he said. "Well, time to make it safe again." He rushed to the main control panel, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. Soraya followed him. "You know how to use alien systems?" Morgan grinned faintly. "Humans learn fast." He began overriding the palace's defensive turrets, switching control from Zyra-T protocols to manual human commands. Soraya watched his fingers fly across the holographic keys. His face lit softly by the blue screen. He looked focused, strong, brilliant. She whispered, "You're trying to save my people." Morgan didn't look up. "I'm trying to save you." Soraya felt her whole world shift. The final wave. The Vorn launched a large boarding claw onto the bridge. The metal gate cracked. Sparks exploded. Then, crash. Dozens of Vorn soldiers poured in. Soraya gasped. Morgan stepped forward again. This time he had nothing, no weapon, no shield, not even that metal pipe. And yet, he didn't move from his spot. He stood between Soraya and the enemy, refusing to back down. A Vorn commander hissed, "Human, you are outnumbered." Morgan cracked his knuckles. "That just makes it fair." They attacked together. Morgan fought like a storm, dodging, countering, blocking, never moving away from Soraya. He took hits. He bled. But he didn't retreat. One Vorn raised a plasma blade to stab him. Soraya screamed, "Morgan!" Morgan grabbed the blade with his bare hand, burning his palm, and twisted it away, knocking the soldier out. But the pain made him drop to one knee. The Vorn commander laughed. "Human, you bleed." Morgan looked up. "Humans bleed, but humans don't break." Soraya felt something explode inside her chest. Fear turned to courage. She grabbed a fallen plasma spear and leapt forward. Morgan's eyes widened. "Soraya, no." But it was too late. Soraya stood in front of him, just as he had done for her, and faced the Vorn commander. "You will not hurt him," she said, her voice shaking but steady. The commander hissed in surprise. "You defend the human?" Soraya lifted the spear, her hands trembling but determined. "Yes," she said firmly. "Because he defended me." The Vorn hesitated, just long enough. Morgan lunged forward, sweeping Soraya behind him, and delivered a powerful strike that threw the commander across the bridge. The remaining Vorn retreated, dragging their injured with them. The boarding failed. The palace was safe. After the battle, Soraya knelt beside Morgan as he leaned against the console, breathing hard. "Your hand, your shoulder, you're hurt." Morgan laughed softly. "You're safe. That's all that matters." Soraya felt tears build in her eyes. Not fear, not sadness, something deeper. She touched his burnt hand gently. "Why do humans do this?" she whispered. "Why fight so fiercely for someone you barely know?" Morgan's expression softened. "Because when we care with everything." Soraya's breath hitched. "And, do you care for me?" Morgan hesitated only a second. "Yes." Her heart raced, warm and bright. The Empress arrived. The doors opened, and the Empress entered with her guards. She saw the unconscious Vorn soldiers, the damage, and then Morgan, injured but standing. "You protected my daughter," she said slowly. Morgan gave a respectful nod. "I did." The Empress studied him for a long moment. Then she turned to Soraya. "Do you still fear this human?" Soraya looked at Morgan. The man who fought for her, bled for her, protected her without hesitation. She shook her head. "No, mother," she said softly. "He is the bravest man I've ever met." The Empress nodded. "The marriage will proceed." But now Soraya did not panic. She did not feel trapped. She did not feel afraid. She stepped closer to Morgan. This time, she chose him.